Hi everyone, I would say welcome back to the Rangers review, but I don't think anyone is happy to be back after that. Listen, there is nights for Blair, adding a bit of context to the defeat. There is nights, I think, where you try and look at both sides. There is nothing you can do after a game like tonight apart from call it what it is, which is a breathtakingly bad example of everything from performance to setup to game management, breathtakingly bad response, and a game that provides so much scar tissue, so many questions. I think was a goal away from being Rangers' worst ever result in their entire history. Probably only doesn't become that because Club Brugge slowed down, in all honesty, in the final 20 minutes. We're going to try and get into some comments. There's loads and loads coming in, more than I can even keep up with as I look over to my right here. We'll, of course, be live tomorrow to get through more comments. But Blair, what else can you say apart from that? It's a bit of a hospital pass, I realise, but I don't think anyone, even if you're the most cynical, and I recognise there was validity to being cynical going into tonight, that just blew absolutely everything out of the water, didn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where to really begin, and I think there's going to be a lot of anger. There's going to be a lot of emotion. There's going to be everything that we've seen over the past few days and weeks. I think that's going to come to a head within the fan base after a result like that. And to be honest, trying to be as neutral as possible and trying to be as objective as possible as we try and do from a journalistic perspective, you simply can't blame the fans, you can't blame the supporters for that anger because what they've seen tonight was nothing short of a shambles from the start to finish. To be honest, I think from the very first whistle, it just wasn't good enough. Club Brugge take the lead, which in effect kills the tie, and at
Yeah.
that point the worst you can see happening is okay, Rangers aren't going to qualify for the next round. Club Brugge have put this tie to bed early doors, fair enough. Max Aarons then gets sent off, which I'm sure we'll come on to talk to in great detail. And the insurmountable mountain just gets even higher to climb. And at that point, you're looking, going, I really hope this doesn't become embarrassing. And then it comes to pass. Bruges get a second, and then they score 3 goals in 5 minutes before the end of the first half, which is just absolutely criminal from a defence that have this in the locker that we've seen so many
Yeah.
times already in this very, very short sample size at the start of this season. We've seen this defence absolutely throw the towel in time and time again. And Russell Martin promised us last week we wouldn't see goals like that conceded again, like we seen in the first leg. But a fair few of those goals tonight were absolutely horrendous. And then, to be honest, I'm sitting at half time going, this could be anything. This could be a cricket score. It looked
Yeah.
as though Bruges were scoring at will. Jack Butland was probably the man of the match for Rangers, and he's let 6 in, which I think Ali
Yeah.
McCoist was saying on commentary really sums it up. And the only reason it wasn't Rangers' heaviest ever European defeat, was that Bruges really took the foot off the gas. They used the second half as a training exercise. And I think Rangers should count themselves lucky that it wasn't 8, 9, even double figures.
Yeah, it's I've written down some of the things that I think watching that game just were the trying to pick out bad bits from that game, Blair, as a competitive field. But I've tried my best. So we'll work our way through some of these, but just as top line, the individual errors and the concession of chances from the start. Russell Martin spoke about Rangers trying to attack from the off. I think there was a clear naivety to that approach and not having Nico Raskin. You see that as soon as Joe Rothwell skipped past from the first chance that Club Brugge create. I think Meg is booked. The fact that Rangers managed to actually start the game worse than they started it last week by going a goal down and a man down inside 8 minutes. You're right, Max Aarons, for that. Everything about that moment is awful. Raskin, the fact that he comes on at 5-0 down, we'll come on to that. Set pieces, Rangers have already conceded, I think, 4 or 5 goals from set pieces. They've averaged the second highest chances conceded from set pieces in the league. That's been a huge issue the whole month. confirmation of this being a terrible start to this season, Blair. And Rangers went into tonight. They went into tonight needing something, because Russell Martin spoke very calmly in the build-up. The whole narrative this summer has been things aren't going to change. They're going to ride out the short-term pain. Manager isn't the silver bullet. And you can say all these things, Blair, but life just comes at you so quickly at Rangers, and you need to start fast to get the fans on side, especially if this appointment wasn't popular. You don't need to be dictated by it, but you need to take it into consideration. You need to understand that impacts the mood, that even just come down to the mood that the players play within, and a team that people identify with. The worst bit about this all for me, Blair, was this, and I want to put it to you, and we'll try and get to some comments as well if people want to let us know what they think about this. You see, when that game goes 1-0 and Max Aarons gets sent off, you do what you did in the second half. You go 5-4-0, whatever. I don't care what it is. It's not about, Russell Martin said last week, wasn't about tactics. I think this week is completely about tactics, because you just say, right, we're going to camp around the goal, and we're not going to be embarrassed. Whereas Rangers were utterly embarrassed as a consequence tonight, because they kept trying to play out. They kept a number of attackers on the pitch. They stayed in a back four instead of going to a back five, despite the fact that they're spending the whole half defending their box. And that's why you see Jeji Gassama caught out terribly for I think it was the fourth goal, because he's a winger and he's defending a position that a fullback should be. You see Lyle Cameron tracking someone far greater in size for, I think, the fifth goal, again, because the defence is absolutely nowhere to be seen. And that is where the criticism of, call it what you want. I don't like the whole plan A, plan B debate, because I don't think it's always an accurate reflection. But there needs to be an element of, sometimes this game isn't going to look how we want it to look. We just got to suffer through this. If Rangers get through tonight and it's 1-0 or 2-0, it's bad, but it's not completely embarrassing as it materialised. The way that Rangers conceded those 3 goals before half-time, I've rarely seen a team at any level capitulate like that, and that for me, Blair, was completely down to a tactical issue.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. I can't disagree with anything you're saying there. I'm just watching on the screen behind me the highlights from that first half, and the goals going in the defence, they just look like absolute statues. Every single time the ball goes in the box, the defence look terrified. They look as though they don't know what they're doing. No one is taking leadership in that defence. I think I said it on the pre-match show with Chris when we touched on James Tavernier not starting. That stunned me. Obviously, in hindsight, is 2020 when Max Aarons goes and gets himself for, let's be honest, what is an absolutely ludicrous decision to make in that situation. Yeah. And I think all of the back four have been asked to play at such high pressure. They've been asked to make decisions under such high pressure, and they're not getting it right. I don't know if they're not good enough long term to do it, but they're not getting it right, and they can't deal with the pressure of trying to play like this at Rangers, and that leads to Max Aarons being caught the wrong side, and then he makes the rash decision, gets himself sent off, and the game is done. To go back to your earlier point there, talking about when it's 1-0, when you're down to 10 men, just sit in, just take the 1-0 and get out of there with what you can. And then I suppose there's a debate to be had about why Rangers didn't do that. Is it an arrogance from the manager to think that my system will prevail at all costs? Is it a genuine belief in his mind that if we play like this, there is some way that we could maybe play our way out of it? I mean, for a manager who prides himself on an attacking philosophy and a all guns blazing attacking football, having a total of 3 shots to Club Brugge's 32 on the evening. I know you're big in your XG, Josh. I can take it or leave it, but Brugge tonight with an XG of 4.2, Rangers 0.1. I mean, that
must be a record. Yeah, that must be. But like the thing is that is what you ask. What's the point of that? And this comment here sums up brilliantly for me. Rangers have spent $3.5 million on Manny Fernandez, who's known for his size. You are not going to win. I don't care who your team is, how optimistic you are. There needs to be an element of rationale. And that rationale needs to be, for me, Blair, that you have a bit of flexibility in your tactical setup, so that when something like that happens tonight, you go, right, this is horrendous, but we're just going to get through it. let's be really tight and really compact, as we'd maybe see Rangers do in Europe last season. Let's turn the Bruges defence. Why you keep, not, this isn't an individual slight on Danilo, but why you keep him on when it's 10 men instead of getting Nico Raskin on there as soon as possible, getting an extra defender on there as soon as possible, I do not understand, because you need the optics to work in your favour to get your idea off the ground at Rangers. I think a sentence we've used a lot this week is you need to build the plane while flying. That was completely dismantling the plane tonight. We'll get to a couple of comments, which, as you can imagine, Blair, are not happy. There's too many coming in, to be honest, for me to keep track of it. But we will try a comment here. Someone's turned it off, first time ever. I was absolutely disgusted with it. Al makes a good point. Is Magoma going to be a Jeffy and be able to play 50 games a season? Criminal recruitment. Do you know, I was speaking to someone in the game, Blair, and they were saying to me that someone like Oliver Antman's I think it was a really good player in the Eredivisie last season, started brightly at Rangers. But if I was coming into Rangers this summer, I think one thing that you absolutely needed to do was you needed a new spine, especially if you're going to replace what really was a spine last season in outfield. Is probably Tavernier and Raskin. And they've kind of become a little bit the fall guys after Motherwell, and I don't. You need to change stuff from last season, right? You need to rip things up to a degree, but I don't think it needs to be. I mean, taking the best player in Raskin out of his best position from last season when you need to do so much elsewhere, I think that's a very questionable piece of recruitment. James Tavernier is past his best, but I don't think Max Aarons is a better player than him. The Rangers have only signed one player over 25, and Joe Rothwell, who struggled tonight and has struggled the last couple of weeks. And I think we're seeing them potentially fall into this habit of signing young, promising players, someone like Lyle Cameron as well, but then very quickly, instead of just being someone who contributes and maybe plays 20 games a season, they've got to be the answer. And ultimately, I don't think these guys are ready for that. They need a group of senior experienced pros that has just evaded Rangers for so long. They needed to go and sign a few captains, and I don't think, based on the evidence of tonight, they've done that. Because again, talk about anything tactical, any manager, surely as players on the pitch tonight, you've got to grab hold of things and say, we're not going to be embarrassed as a group. Let's just keep this together and not concede, for example, until halftime.
Yeah, there has to be an element of professional pride there. There just has to be. I think from Russell Martin's perspective, from everything that happened at the weekend with all that the Hamza Igaman comments now, there's a big part of this Rangers job that involves playing the politician and looking, as you said, at the optics of situations and looking at how that's going to affect you. Now, losing tonight, I don't think any Rangers fan would have really had issue, because everyone I spoke to, I found very few Rangers fans that were optimistic coming into this game. But there is absolutely a way to lose games, and that is just totally unacceptable to the fans, the way they lost that game tonight. I agree with you. I think captains on the pitch is such a massive thing that Rangers have been missing for so long. I think the recruitment is not conducive to that. I think you look at the back four, and again, you look tonight, 3 out of that back 4 are loan players. Now, I'm not saying that loan players can't be captain material, they can't be big voices in a changing room, but when you've got guys who really aren't, and it's understandable, are not committed to the long-term future of the club and are not signed up to the long-term project, how are you supposed to build a bedrock of a culture in your dressing room when you've got guys who don't even know if they're going to be there in 12 months' time? I just don't see that happening. I think you've got Nico Raskin. How you don't start him in a game like that is, I don't know. It beggars belief to me. I think Russell Martin offering up a solution to that, or offering up an answer to that post-match, will be really interesting to hear, because, again, it's not just what Nico Raskin would bring you on the park. He's playing in his own country. He's recently made his debut. I think there's a lot of factors that go into this that would have meant that he would really have wanted to start that game. And And it just shows you that you bring him on at half-time when you're 5-0 down. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that even discussing the Rangers attack tonight is basically a moot point, because they didn't get the ball. They didn't get anywhere close to getting the ball. I mean, it doesn't matter who you stuck. Ali could have went down from the commentary box and stuck himself up front. It wouldn't have made any difference, because Rangers were just a non-entity in the attacking third of the pitch. And again, when the manager is so built on this philosophy of attacking gung-ho football, if your strikers aren't seeing the ball, then somewhere along the way, the chain is missing a link, and it's up to him to find out where it is, and he's going to have to find it out quickly.
Yeah, I just think comment here from Scott Gervin, 10 saves from Jack Butland gives you an idea of how much worse it could have been. I mean, Butland, to my mind, had like quite a few really good stops. He pushed one onto the bar. Club Brugge hit the woodwork on a couple more occasions, and that's the worst bit about it for me, Blair, because that obviously, like, I think going into a game like tonight, it won't be close. Even Rangers' best performance wouldn't be close to what Russell Martin thinks. This is what I want to get to. This is what I want it to look like eventually. But I'm going to write about this on the website tomorrow. I think you have managers who are like, I'm going to try and not tangent too much here, right? But you have managers that are, I think, either more informed by what they want their teams to be, or what they're like scared, what they're kind of the defeats that have scared them the most. So what I mean by that is, if you see Arteta, right, probably a good example. When Arsenal a few years ago nearly won the league, they were a pretty free-flowing attacking side, and they got absolutely done in the final few weeks, months of the season, didn't they? That game against Man City, where physically they just looked so far off it. I think it was Rob Holding and marking Erling Haaland. And I was reading an interesting piece that was basically saying that elite managers, what informs them most is their failures and adapting to it. Rather than, this is what I want it to look like, but okay, I'm going to have to compromise somewhere. I'm going to have to be more physical. I'm going to have to go for more marginal gains. And to be fair, Russell Martin spoke about that, I think, that Monday night football segment he did about doing the dark arts more. But tonight's a perfect example for me of just take the hit. Surely no one benefits from trying to stick and maintain to playing out and playing through at 1-0 with a man down, 2-0 with a man down. That is for me the crux of the argument tonight, and why Rangers find themselves in such a desperate situation. We're going to spend tomorrow morning, myself and Johnny, looking more at what this means and the wider context, and the potential of what happens on Sunday, and the huge early pressure that Russell Martin is under, Blair. Rangers clearly were not Champions League ready. To what extent does this inform, in your opinion, what they need to do in the final few days of the window? We reported today that talks have opened with Bojan Miovski. Our understanding is that is most likely at this moment to be on a permanent basis, and that there's optimism that that deal can get done, although there's still some work to be done on it. There's a lot more still needed, surely, Blair, isn't there? I mean, Rangers have signed 9 players outside of Cameron and Cortez who were pre-arranged. How much does tonight inform what they have to do? Because they're still in the first month of the season, even if a conversation like tonight maybe doesn't make that feel like the reality.
Yeah, it's been a long August. Let's put it that way. I can't believe we're still here. I think there's a lot to be done before Monday's deadline. I think looking at the squad, I think refer back to Ali and commentary on the TV tonight. A lot of the recruitment, they just don't look physically up to it. They don't look mentally up to it. I think that if Rangers are going to make a serious fist of this season, then they really need to recruit at the back. I think another centre back is an absolute must. If he doesn't trust Fernandes, and that was a shelled out quite a lot of money for him, then they have to go again and get somebody who can command that defence. I know Russell Martin said in a press conference last Friday, I think it was, when he said that they were close to getting a target that was an experienced player, but it just got away from them. So I think experience is an absolute must. I think. But again, you look at that performance tonight, and you go, a centre forward's not getting any service. A centre forward's not getting anywhere near it. So yeah, you're looking at centre forwards going like that. Do I actually want to come to a team that I'm not going to see any of the ball. I'm not going to get chances, and that would be my concern. I think now you go into the final few days of the window. It's not so much that Rangers aren't going to be playing in the Champions League, and that hinders your chances of signing top players. It's players are looking at this style, and they're looking at the results that have been handed out to Rangers, and are they maybe reticent to come and join this because already there's a lot of ill feeling amongst the fans already. It looks as though there's some ill feeling amongst the squad. If you're a new signing, are you rushing to get involved in that? I don't know if you are.
Yeah, I don't know if you are. I don't know if you are. Listen, Blair, we're going to leave it there. We'll be live for an extended show tomorrow morning, but we're going to go just now so we can bring you Russell Martin's reaction from Chris out in the press conference in Belgium. Appreciate everyone joining us. We'll be live tomorrow morning to speak about this, the fallout, the ramifications, the extent of disastrous, embarrassing, call it whatever you want. I don't think words quite do justice that performance from Rangers in Belgium tonight. We'll see you in the morning. Until then, bye for now.